Do you know what it takes to be an Olympian? Today we're talking to Olympic gold medalist Simon Whitfield. Simon, great to have you on The Wealthy Life today.
Thanks for having me. This is terrific.
So an Olympic gold medal in the sport of triathlon. What was that like to get there?
It was a long journey. Started in Kingston, Ontario, and ended up in Australia. And it was just the story of a kid who was just preoccupied with this thing he loved to do and was able to take it to the top of a podium, which was...
And how old were you when you figured out this is what you wanted to do?
I just liked being outside and competing at anything, whatever it might be. Very early on, I started triathlon at age 11 and continued on doing it for 4 Olympics from there.
So what do you think is the right mindset of a young athlete wanting to get to that level of sport?
It's all preoccupation. It's an ability to remain solely focused on one objective and to be fully immersed in that, whatever it is, music, art, theater, in this case, sport. It's just an ability to be disciplined and completely and utterly preoccupied.
Right, because it is a lot of effort and it's a lot of hours. How many hours a day on average would you train?
Our training regimen was in that kind of 6-hour range, but it's more than that. It wasn't just 6 hours of training. It was just this, when you woke up, it was the first thing you thought about, and when you went to bed, it was the last thing you thought about, and you did this day after day after day, year after year.
So not a lot of time for other relationships, I'm assuming, during the training process.
No, I mean, but within that environment, the environment that you create, whether it would be your training squad or what have you, you had support, you had friendships, and you had relationships, but your day revolved around, and the commitment was to this one objective.
Now, how do people pay for this? Because that's a lot of training in a day. It's almost like having a full-time job, because that's the focus, or even more than a full-time job. But people still need to put a roof over their head and food on the table. Mm-hmm. So what are some common ways that people are able to do that?
Yeah, I think everybody has their own, some people are going to school while doing it too. So in my case, it was working summer jobs or through the off season, working a job and in the beginning. And then as races and I was able to accumulate prize money, I was slowly able to afford to go to more things. But I think more importantly, it was just about having this very simple lifestyle that it meant that everything was accounted for to work towards being able to be preoccupied. And that may mean less work, it may mean at other times more work, but it always came back to the same thing, which was to be wholly and fully engaged.
Right, and that means keeping your expenses low if you can. So you don't need a fancy residence, you don't need a sports car, you don't need to eat out all the time. Well, you're probably eating super healthy at home anyways during the training routine. So what are some ways, aside from working, is there grants available for people to help pay for things?
Yeah, there are grants available. They're across the country and within local municipalities, there would be grants available. There's always a way. That kind of expression comes back to just figure it out. There is support out there, and if there's this consideration that it will take a while, that's the reality of it. But the people who do make it to that Olympic level, they just found a way to figure it out. In some case, they had backing from maybe friends and family. In other cases, they just figured out a different method to do it.
And what are some of the other expenses associated? I mean, obviously roof overhead, food on the table, but what about gear and equipment and travel, I guess? How many competitions do you need to do?
That would be the overwhelming expense is travel. But even then, I mean, if people are able to put themselves in a position where they can qualify for races, tournaments, events that they need to get to, then that funding will often find a way to find them. Right. So they may not be able to go to all the competitions that they wanted to, but there's always this way, there's always this path forward to find that one competition, to put your name on the team, to be on the next team, to make it to the next level.
So aside from family, friends, maybe apply for grant, maybe the community steps in to support you and working to pay for it, that's great. But viewers, if you're wanting to support a young athlete, maybe there's a way they can help. Where would they go?
Yeah, here in Victoria, you can go to 944.ca. It's the legacy fund from the Commonwealth Games, and it's funded national, provincial, and local sports organizations for many, many years now, and continues to. And if people want to make a donation, that's the place to do it for sure.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
That's true.
Simon, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.